Hello and welcome to Everything Happens for a Reason. This podcast is about the business side of creative jobs, because my whole career has been dedicated to both business development and creativity enhancement. My name is Lily Bonnet and you can find me on Instagram, LILI_BONNET_management. On the 15th of each month, I will interview an artist, a designer, or a person promoting and supporting creatives. We won't actually talk about a creative process, which is fascinating, but it's already been addressed in many different media. We will discuss how they manage, how they promote their work, how the magic operates behind the scenes. Some of them are clients of mine, others aren't yet. They all work in creative industries and do it well. I love who they are and what they do. Enjoy! I've started this podcast almost a year and a half ago, and I very much enjoy it. I initially wanted to offer a good balance of French and English content. However, being in France, I have to say that we mostly have a French-speaking audience, so I opted for satisfying the greatest number. But I love speaking English, and I'm all for being more and more inclusive. Such a fashionable word, I know. But for instance, when interviewing someone from a line of business where we use specific vocabulary, I always try to be as clear as possible and to give all the definitions. I try not to be elitist. I don't want anyone to feel left out. So, here's to my English-speaking audience all over the world. And to the French who enjoy the podcast so much and wish to practice their English that they're up for listening to this solo summer episode. So when I launched the podcast in March 2023, before broadcasting my first interview with India Madhavi, I wanted to introduce myself and give a little background. So this episode is quite what I am planning to do today. It all started in London. Well, no, it actually started in Paris, where I was born and raised until the age of 14. My mother was a design connoisseur, as we say. So I've always been surrounded with amazing pieces such as like the Eames lounge chair, the Chameleonda sofa by Mario Bellini, the egg lamp by Benz Wildens, which actually now sits in my home office, and many other incredible and bold designs whose impact on the world and on me I didn't suspect yet. My mum loved art, design and decoration. She also loved fashion and she loved music. So did my father. He had a very large collection of vinyl records, mainly jazz. And they would always listen to FIP radio. FIP stands for France Inter Paris, which is famous for its edgy programming and for the airy voices of their female hosts. They have definitely contributed to my childhood's dream of becoming myself a radio host, hence this podcast. So, back to London. This is where it all started on the professional level. After graduating in law, I was craving for freedom and adventure, and I wanted to prove myself that I could make it on my own, although I didn't really know what making it meant to me at that time. I was 21, living my best life in the southwest of France, surfing and partying. But I wanted to discover a foreign country. I wanted to speak another language. But I didn't want to be too far away in case I needed to come back home for my grandparents. This was 1998 and London was thriving. There I was, on the train from Biarritz to London via Paris, my mum waving me goodbye and saying bon voyage, which then became our favorite phrase, kind of like a private joke between us. And these were my last words to her for her final voyage 3 years ago. Anyway, back to London. I found a waitering job in a bar for a few months and then entered the Levi's flagship store on Regent Street. I wasn't really a fan of the brand at the time, but I loved the vibe in the store. So I applied right away for a sales advisor position. Despite my lack of experience, I was in the right attitude and bold enough to convince them to give me a chance. Well, at the end of my month trial, I was Employee of the Month. I just fully embraced the brand spirit, the people, and the management style. And the British way of working in general, which is based on who you are and your potential to grow, not on what you may have done in the past or studied. They gave me an opportunity and I seized it. Everything happens for a reason. This phrase that changed my life. On a busy day in 1999, I was in the loading bay at the back of the store with Mitch Besim, my line manager. He gave me the best pep talk ever, as I didn't get the supervisor job I applied for in-house, but I was sure I would get it, and I really didn't understand what went wrong during the job interview with the store manager or why he didn't think I was ready. I was really frustrated and angry. Mitch knew my potential, but he could also sense that I didn't have the growth mindset to supervise a team of 70 people within the biggest Levi's store in Europe. I needed to accept and learn from this, which was not a failure, just a stepping stone for a better inner development. And so I did. I swallowed my pride, kept a low profile, maintained the highest standards in my work, and when I applied for that same position 3 months later, because the person who got the job didn't actually perform, well, guess what? Yes, I was ready. Yes, I got it. Everything happens for a reason. After 2 years in London, I followed Mitch to Paris to revive the flagship store there. We formed a very strong and balanced management duo. We recruited many new team members. Each of them had their own style, their own strength, their character, and the whole synergy made the store perform at an exponential growth. It was the place to be. The energy was pumping, the merchandising was sleek, the team was cool and edgy. We ensured regular training and communication, and figures were over the top. Way beyond the financial objectives that were set by head office, our store had the highest profitability rate per square meter. Top management from all over the world would come and visit us to see for themselves and understand the key to this success. Well, let me tell you that the key was simple. It was people. The team, obviously. Everything happens for a reason. However, I was putting in too many hours. The pace was hectic. I was probably working an average of 80 hours a week. And Levi's was kind of like my second name. The store was my second home. I was also putting too much pressure on myself, and it was probably, my first burnout. So I left after 5 years of great service. I took some time off to reflect, and I knew I had to get away from retail. A close friend, Yannick Mazzilli, who used to work at Levi's, introduced me to Alexandra Senes, former editor-in-chief of French fashion and society magazine Jalouse. She was launching her own business of events and communication consulting. I worked with her for 3 years and I loved it. The fashion crowd, the gifts, the shows, the journalism. Alexandra knew everyone, and she still does. She has always been a visionary with a great smile. I was coordinating the small team, the accounts, the events, and I had a blast. I especially loved working on the radio program L'Air de Paris for Hermès Japan on J-Wave Radio. Every week, Alexandra would interview a big name from the arts and culture scene in France. I assisted her in prepping and editing, and I was the liaison for the Japanese teams. Somehow, it was my second step towards this podcast. Everything happens for a reason. But again, I was working too hard. I had another burnout, discarded it, and quickly moved on to another job. I was at Bipol, a graphic design agency, now named Atelier Saint-Lazare, to develop the knitting kids brand Wool and the Gang. It was really cool. I loved working with the whole team there, Antoine and Clémentine, everyone else. The workplace was gorgeous, and I still kind of get a sense of belonging to this team. On a personal note, I experienced my first deep grief with my grandmother's passing, and it was too much for me to handle. So after a year, I decided to quit and started working as a freelance, the auto-entrepreneur status in France, which enabled me to get a first glimpse of the entrepreneur way of life. I also got a foretaste of coaching in English with a French writer who had to promote her book worldwide. Loved it, but was not quite ready yet. Everything happens for a reason. Well, you remember I said I didn't want to go back to retail after my 5-year experience at Levi's? Well, I did anyway. I seized yet another opportunity, which brought me to another French city, Lyon. This was quite a tough decision to make on both levels. Professionally, I wasn't 100% sure to be okay with going back to retail, but the challenge was worth it. At French brand Mage from the SMCP group, they were opening a directrice régionale position. It means like area sales and operations manager for the whole region around Lyon. And on a personal note, I had recently met a wonderful man, who's now my husband, and my moving would obviously have an impact on our relationship too. So I was going back and forth every weekend, driving many kilometers on the weekdays from one store to the other within my area. I had like 15 points of sales, O&O, owned and operated, shop-in-shops and affiliated. About 60 people altogether, and an incredibly high brand equity. Judith Milgrom, the artistic director for Mage and founder, had a clear vision for her brand and a great sense of fashion and trends and storytelling. The SMCP group really built a strong and unique business model on a new segment between fast fashion and luxury, bringing the shopping experience to another level. The clients were loving it, and the money was flowing. Despite a hands-on top management, I was rather independent within my area, and I recruited and empowered a few talents, some of which I am still close to today. But there was a lot of pressure, and I was acting as a buffer because I didn't want my team to feel it as much. So I decided to quit retail for good after 18 months. This experience, though, was crucial to my development, as I acquired stronger management and operational skills. The big step I surely needed before moving forward to something that my heart would beat faster for. Everything happens for a reason. And I wanted to go back to Paris and to be with my man. The universe gave Paris to me before I could even terminate my notice period, as I had to undergo an emergency surgery, which implied a 4-week recovery, clearly a third burnout. August 2012, not fully recovered yet, but officially moving back to Paris to start a new job. Believe it or not, I knew from the start that this would be my last experience as an employee. I didn't know how or when I would set up my own business, but I was sure it would come eventually. I had met India Medavi a few years back when I was working with Alexandra Senes. Like Alexandra, India had a family-scale business and she needed a right hand. Well, let's say a left hand, given I'm a lefty. Again, it was a job opening, and I shaped the office manager role to my character, my strength, my values, and ambition. A pivotal role, the office manager ensures that everything runs smoothly, that the creative director's vision is carried out with consistency, and that everyone is happy, the boss, the team, the clients. You promote the brand, defend the designer's interests, protect the company's assets, and maximize profitability. I was doing what I'm good at, and I felt privileged to be immersed in art and beauty every day, all day long. Watching India orchestrating everything, running a business, being a woman, being creative, working with the team, meeting clients, communicating, basically doing everything with maestria and an unrivaled attention to detail, as well as a good sense of humor, fortunately, Well, all this was fascinating. I have spent close to 9 years by her side. Quite a long time, during which I obviously experienced many things personally too. Turning 40, mourning my father, getting engaged, and now married, so if you're following me, yes, to the same man, buying a house and giving birth. And becoming a mother is probably the most wonderful and the most demanding job ever. And something inside me just clicked. Yeah, everything happens for a reason. What are my core values? What kind of a human being, woman, mother, wife do I want to be? What type of legacy do I want to leave to my son? February 2020, my son turns 1 year old. I figured it was the right time for me to move on to my next professional venture. And just like that, COVID happened. Lockdown, remote working. With the baby, walking his first steps, bumping into every piece of furniture while I was having back-to-back Zoom meetings. I'm always up for a challenge, but that was the last straw. I was getting overwhelmed with my workload, mental load, household load, well, another load of everything. Trying to keep up, hoping to be a perfect, yeah, it's hard for me to say that word now. So hoping to be perfect and at every single level of my life. And guess what? Yes, of course. This naturally led me to a fourth burnout, probably the heaviest. Everything happens for a reason. So I had to rebalance, to reharmonize my life, to rest, and to reconnect with joy. It was time to embrace the entrepreneur life. I left the company in January 2021, launched my own business, LBM, Lily Bonnet Management, on March 15. Only a month and a half, but I actually had a whole year before that to think it all through and to prep. I was ready, and it's been a tremendous adventure ever since. For over 3 years, I've been supporting creatives in managing and developing their activities because they should be able to focus on what they love and do best, designing. My clients are highly talented, super skilled, hypersensitive, and my purpose is to provide them with the tools to their own growth, to help them thrive and expand their business. Together, we work on key inner levers such as mindset, leadership, vision, values, mission. As a business coach, mentor, and trainer, I believe in people. Every milestone in my career is deeply linked to beautiful encounters. Everything happens for a reason. I am driven by love, beauty, and gratitude. And I do hope you enjoyed discovering more about me and my pathway. Stay tuned and bon voyage! Thank you for listening. I do hope you enjoyed it. Please feel free to share, to spread the love, granted with 5 stars on Apple Podcast, and post your comments on your favorite platform or on Instagram. Stay tuned for the next episode, a new guest on the 15th of each month, a bonus, or a solo once in a while. And until then, keep in mind that everything happens for a reason.